Well, I think I'd like to call the OnPoint Board of Directors meeting to order now, and let's rise and do the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there an elegant pledge?
No,
No, okay, just want to make sure. But I'll very attention to the new flag.
Oh, I didn't pay attention.
I'd like to take this
Yes,
quite a
please do.
privilege.
Please do.
I'd like to present this Allegheny County flag on behalf of the past year to the staff and the OnPoint organization. This is the new colored flag that the county has. And I felt that this would be something that I could do, and I present that to the organization.
It's probably slipped on the
It's
back.
like,
so-
you're gonna have long.
Just one point of historical information. When my sister was working for the treasurer's office, they asked, because she was graphically inclined, to develop a seal for the Allegheny County. And this is her work.
Okay.
And that would be almost 50 years ago.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, let's call the roll. And I got my cheat.
Got it right this time.
All right. Kimberly, here. Jessica, here. Mark,
Here.
Crystal,
Here.
Gail,
Here,
Beth. Here. I'm here. Marcia, sent me a text just recently today and said unfortunately she's not here because her father has passed away. And so. Right here, I'm sorry to hear that. Yep, here. Karen. Here. Yay, look at that. Okay. This is the time where we can, is there anyone in the public who wishes to address the board on agenda items only? Anybody online wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll have another opportunity later tonight. To go on. Does anyone wish to add or change the agenda? If not, I have some shuffling around a little bit in the order. I would like to move that my chairperson's in the search committee report be moved down to below the training. So like move 12 to below 15. And that way can have all of the training and everything, and then it wouldn't be any problem if you wanted to just sort of scoot out after that, or if you're more than welcome to stay the entire time. Do I have support for that change in the agenda?
move to approve the agenda with the change noted.
Support. Oh, wait, you know what? I made the motion and he supported it. No, there you go. Any discussion? All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Does anyone wish to remove any items from under the consent agenda in order to discuss them individually? And you may notice that we have all of the CEO search committee minutes now included in that. We're up to date. If not, may I have a motion to approve the prior minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Support? Support by Kim. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, Jessica. Have you talked to about in the program?
We talked about a lot of stuff.
Okay, well, I'll talk fast.
We didn't. They did. Yeah. We heard from, today we heard from Case Management and Supportive Services. That was presented by the supervisor, Todd Rockhill. They're doing lots of good work over there. They've recently added another care coordinator to their team, who also happens to monitor, court-ordered individuals for outpatient services. They have a huge team. If you got the handout for them, like, a huge team. They're serving lots of individuals. They have a total of 782 individuals that they're currently serving.
How many on the team?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
I don't have exact numbers. We didn't go over exact numbers because there's a lot on the team.
Okay.
You can see all the case managers here and then their different roles.
Oh, all right.
So that's a lot of individuals they're servicing, and they do break it down for those that need medication clinic only and then secondary services, but total 782. They also have the peer supports, and one of their peer support people was also recently certified as a peer recovery coach. So they're also able to work with people in SUD programs like that. So that was pretty awesome to hear. They just keep growing and growing. That was their stuff. We also heard from, my notes over here. Crisis and Access. We didn't hear from the mental health court today, but we did hear from Melissa. Hotman, is that how you pronounce her last name? Hotman. She did explain that they're currently, the mental health definition has been expanded, so it includes more things than what we would have typically thought of, like back maybe just a few 10, 15 years ago, where it was just like the self-harm, I want to hurt myself type of things. It's been broadened to include more things like issues at home and just a lot of stuff. So they've been doing, they have a lot of work too, and not as many people as far as I know. But she went through what it would look like for someone seeking assistance. Their pre-assessment screens, they do mental health petitions, crisis walk-in, SUD, brief screens, mobile crisis response. So the screens that they do for pre-admission and then the SUD, those they screen out for higher level of care. That way, if they notice someone like they might need a little more than what this person is able to give them, then they'll make sure that they get basically all the services they need, which I think is amazing because that wasn't always the case. It was like you came in for this and that's it, and everything else was left by the wayside. As far as for the mobile crisis, one thing we found out that I wasn't quite aware of is they only actually have 2 people on that team. Is that correct? That staff the mobile crisis after hours, the 24/7?
It's additional competence, so there's technically no one on the team because it's staff and other roles.
Gotcha. So they do have individuals, they're volunteer-ish, right? And they paid with a
They're
stipend.
paid with a stipend.
Yeah. And they're there, we asked about how many calls they get, and they said it's about 30 to 40 a year. Not all of them are face-to-face, some of them are by phone. But they're doing more and more to get the information out to the community. They're doing a lot of presentations with other services like the judicial system, law enforcement, schools, just general, other places in the community. Let's see, what else did they talk about? Pre-admissions, and Melissa went over the way they do the pre-admissions and that it has expanded to also include like partial hospitalizations, not just like sending someone to the hospital. Like maybe they just needed like kind of a daytime facility is the way I thought of it myself, where they would go in the day to group therapy or individual or whatever they need and then kind of go from there. Crisis walk-ins, they have that. They're open Thursday nights until 7. They also have 2 peer positions on that crisis team. Let's see. And I already talked about the expanding of the definition. The other thing they're expanding is mobile crisis and the actual scope of what they do. So they're looking to give the people who do the mobile crisis more specialized training, coordinate within the community systems, again, like the judicial system, law enforcement and other places. So it was a lot of information. And then we also heard from Gina. She gave us a lot of information on her report. It's all in there. She just went over it briefly. One of the biggest things that I took away from that was, and I underlined it, they were currently interviewing for a QI director role, which the interviews have now since been completed. And they offered the position to our very own Megan Ford, who accepted. And so they're working on a transition plan and things like that. So I thought that was good. One of the other things was the CARF application was submitted at the end of April. And so they're expecting a review possibly in August or September, which I have a feeling will go very well. We heard then from Kathy from customer service. She gave us a bunch of stats, 9 new hires for orientation and review. And she kind of breaks that down and it's right in your packet on page 20. She went over grievances and disputes, which they're doing really, really well. There was not much going on in that realm. The other thing she really went over was the surveys that were sent out, that usually get sent out August, September, and they go until like the end of the year. One thing I noticed is the number of surveys going out and the number we received back. So if you didn't get the customer satisfaction survey, it's right in there. The pages aren't numbered, but one says CMHSP completed surveys from 2023 to 25. The numbers I noticed is that OnPoints keep just going up, which I think is amazing. So in 23, we received 208, and 24, we received 261 surveys. And in 2025, 416.
Ooh.
So that just shows how much the organization has grown, because surveys are hard to get, I think, sometimes. And so to see those numbers just increase, it just goes to show that OnPoint is doing an excellent job in the community. And I am a little biased on that. So that was really neat. And there's a lot of breakdown in here. So just lots and lots of good information that Ellery put together. But I looked at our OnPoint. Oh, Kathy also said that they're out in the community more and there's different events coming up. So they will be going out a few times a year. One new one that they started was people helping people out in Pullman area. The gals went and talked to the individuals down there, and they're going to be going a few times a year during like their food distributions to be able to hand out pamphlets, information, and talk to individuals who maybe haven't heard of OnPoint or need more information about it. So I thought that was really good, especially in an area like Pullman when it's hard for people to sometimes get out this way. We're all like nodding our heads in the Pullman area, so we understand the dynamics in that community. So I thought that was really great. So just lots and lots of good stuff going on. And that's all I have.
Questions for Jessica? It's not really a question. I just have a comment that on those surveys completed, and this is for the whole staff, because in this world of data and surveys and trying to get people to respond, in 2025, we had almost 25% more than West Michigan CMH, and they're much larger. And we over doubled our responses in 2 years. And so kudos to OnPoint. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, I wanted to say 2 things. First of all, we had a chance to see Glenn at the executive committee meeting and was able to give him a plaque for thanking him for his service. And what was it? How many years?
11 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Since 2011.
It was really amazing. So, and gave him a bon voyage. And I think we talked about it last month that we found out that we asked Craig, who is the vice chair of the recipient rights committee, if he would be willing to step up as the chair, and he said yes. And then we also found out that, we always get a report from the recipient rights, and that doesn't have to be the chair who does that report. And so, Kelsey has been willing to go ahead and, Craig can write it and Kelsey can deliver it, and, then Craig doesn't have to stay to stay here to do that. So, given all that, Kelsey, you didn't have a meeting this month, but is there anything that you wanted to report? No, you're good. Any questions for Kelsey? All right. We have Stephanie here. Yep, we got Stephanie.
Shall we pay the bills?
Did I skip you? Right over you. I'm surprised you didn't do me a Okay, all right, Beth, we would like to give you a report.
Gladly, yes. All right, starting over on page 5, just some of the operational or administrative things that have been going on. This does reflect March of 2026. So some of this might be old or redundant, but Paycor has come in as the Human Resource Information System, so that's good. But the big one that everyone should be happy about is merit pay increases or lump sum payments we're seeing in their first paycheck of April. So that's a nice little touch. Ask the Management team is moving to kind of piggyback by a few days to the quarterly staff meetings, or what, I don't know if they're quarterly, but the staff meetings. And we're getting better participation on that. The first cohort of the supervisors training program has kicked off. The card for accreditation is rolling in at the 3-year mark. Oh, and my favorite, the Human Resource Department volunteered for mock interviews at the Allegan Tech Center, and everybody at the Tech Center thanks you. We run about 675 kids through mock interviews in 5 days. So it's a crazy week, but we appreciate it. So, Folks for Fun is still doing their fun stuff. And really, other than DocuSign coming on as part of the IT piece to start signing, that's been happening. And then, of course, the certificate of occupancy on the mat room that we just did. So that's kind of the administrative side. On page 7, we can pay the bills quick. And I recommend that the OnPoint board approve the April 2026 disbursements totaling $4,539,777.39.
Do I hear support for that motion?
Support.
Any discussion?
It's 99 cents.
I was just gonna say that.
Say it again.
You said 39.
99 and 60 cents, sorry.
End of discussion.
Okay, because it's money, I'll go through. Kimberly,
Yeah.
Jessica,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
I say yes. Marcia, whoops. Deb
Yes.
and Karen.
Yes. Okay, and then on to page 8, we have a new provider. So I recommend that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2026. And the provider is Gage Consulting for Challenging Behavior, LLC.
Support for that motion.
Second.
Deb or Don, you decide who that was.
As long as we don't throw stones at me, like.
All right. Any discussion? All right, Karen?
Yes.
Deb? Yes. I say yes. Beth?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes. Okay, on to page 11. It's the revenue and expense by funding source. On the far right column, the Medicaid subtotal, $984,528 is looking to go back to the LRE. The CCBHC, subtotal is doing well with an 80,000 to the good. And then the general fund, currently, we have about $500,000 going back to the state. But because the CCBHC IA grant has been used up, we will be dipping into the general fund. And you'll see changes in that as we move throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Any questions on that page? Okay. Moving on to the statement of debt position on page 12. Cash and cash equivalents. And then Andre taught me something tonight. Plus the investments for September 30, 2025. If you take those top two numbers, it's about 5.7. And then in the right column, you take the top two numbers, it's about 6.6. The difference being that $984,000 that we plan to give back to the state. So I thought that was a cute little check. Down in liabilities, the accounts payable, it's a little higher because of some inpatient. Due to other governmental units that we have to pay out to, that's basically is the settlement for 2025 and 26 year to date. And the happy number, way down, second one to the bottom, the unrestricted net position is over 3.5 billion. So once again, holding strong. As for revenue and expenses, on page 13, we're halfway through the fiscal year from October through March, so we should be hovering right around the 50% mark. Healthy Michigan capitation is a little bit high because we either have enrollments coming in or the disenrollments are less, but we're pretty strong there. The 55% under the state general fund formula funding that was carried forward from 2025. So that one was a little high. Overall for revenue, we're at 48.2. Going down into expenses, supplies, 89.11%. That's because we did that big bulk purchase of laptops and so forth, but that'll start to level out as the year goes on. And down in occupancy, it's not going to stay at 40% because it's spring cleaning at OnPoint. The windows, the carpets, and all that good stuff's coming. So the total operating expense is at 48% roughly. So our revenues are matching our expenses fairly well. Going back to the earlier part of our fiscal year, the CCBHC was behind in visits. And year to date, for CCBHC, we budgeted 16,650. We went beyond that to an actual 16,876. So we are ahead on our visits by 227. As for the month of March alone, we were over by 347 visits. So we're making up good ground. And another thing that plays into this whole budget and revenue and money stuff, the rate that the state sets for CCBHC, early on, like last year, early October, the rate at 398, and Andre was, on top of it, and he said, no, we're never going to get that. We budgeted at 370, and it looks like it's going to come in at 385. So smart conservative budgeting is gonna save us on this one. So one last thing I'd like to show you, this is the teacher in me, but we get pretty little charts in the finance committee. And one of them is this bar right here that is crisis services. We're the green, the benchmark is the yellow. About, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, our green mark was way over here. And crisis services, I believe that would be Gina and that crew, basically cut expenses by about 40% to come in line with the benchmark. And that is everything Jessica just talked about. So we're serving plus doing it fiscally responsible. And then these services, the case management services, the state average is like $100 per visit per episode, whatever it is. We do it for about 40% of that. And that is, once again, providing and being fiscally responsible. So good job, OnPoint. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Beth? Thank you. Okay, now, Stephanie.
Hi, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I just have a handful of updates for you. Wanted to let you know that here at the LRE, we continue to work on our agency strategic plan. We, at last month's board meeting, did a work session to get a pulse from our CMH CEO friends, as well as all of our awesome board of directors, what they would like to see added and any new threats, challenges, things of that nature to our strategic plan. So what we're doing now is we are shepherding that information to our own internal staff as well as our ROTs to get ideas from them as well. And then what we'll be able to do is tidy it up, send it back to our board of directors in this summer to make sure that it looks good. And then we'll be sharing that out with everyone to finish up our agency strategic plan. While the agency strategic plan is happening, we're also working through our substance use disorder strategic plan. This plan is one that is very prescribed by MDHHS because they do require us to have quite a bit of granular data in it. And so right now we're working on pulling in data from the youth assessment surveys, as well as our BH-TEDS data, national trends, things of that nature. And then what we're also doing is giving that to our substance use disorder ROT and prevention and treatment work groups to get feedback from them and our staff as well. And then we're going to be sharing that with our oversight policy board, as well as our entire board of directors. So we've got 2 plans working right now for the next 3-year cycles, because we're in year 3 of 3 of both of those. So those are some of the big things that we're working on. One other thing I just mentioned was the Oversight Policy Board. The next meeting of that group is going to be on Wednesday, June 10th. And instead of it being at 4 o'clock, it's going to be at 5 o'clock because that's actually the same day as the summer conference. And so a lot of us will be traveling back from Traverse City. So we wanted to give people space to, be able to travel and not feel like they have to fly out of that conference quickly. But anyway, we will be meeting at Ottawa County CMH right in the boardroom. So again, that's June 10th at 5 p.m., not 4 p.m. So just wanted to make sure you knew that. And then our LRE board meeting is next week, Wednesday. We will be doing a work session at 11. It will be myself and our CIO, Ione Myers, and we'll be doing a presentation on artificial intelligence for the board work session. And then also we will have our full board meeting at 1 p.m. And then that will also be available if you need to via Zoom, let me know and I can get you that link. Otherwise, we do host it in Muskegon at Grand Valley's Muskegon location on Viridian Avenue. So that is an option if any of you have interest in that. Just a couple other things too that we're working through right now. We just completed the customer satisfaction survey for 2026. So we did email that out to all of our CMHs, and it sounds like earlier Kathy was talking a little bit about that. So that's starting to be distributed. So that's exciting. First time ever we're this early. Super excited about that. The other thing I wanted to mention is Health Services Advisory Group. That is the governing body that comes in every year and checks us and other PIHPs across the state as far as our compliance. So think of it almost like as if it's our CARF, if you will. We now have another section of that that's due this week, Friday, and it's on provider network as well as like encounters and a lot of how we, pull the data in, extrapolate the data out, things of that nature. So that is due to them on the 22nd, which is this Friday, and then they will do a virtual visit with us to give us our results. They haven't told us the date, but just so you know, it's during the month of June. That's what we were told. So super helpful. It'd be nice to know that date, but they haven't shared that yet. So as soon as I know that date, I'll let you know, and obviously we'll let you know the results. But anyway, that's one of those items where MDHHS had indicated to us that we weren't going to need to be working with health services for this year. And then all of a sudden at the last minute, they decided, no, actually you do need to work with them again. So here we are working with Health Services Advisory Group. So anyway, those are the big things that we have going on right now at LRE. Madam Chair, that concludes my report unless anyone has any questions or comments for me.
Any questions for Stephanie? All right, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, I think I'd like to start out by just saying that tonight, one of our members from the public, Royal Drury, handed me something that I'd gotten a copy of earlier. We've been talking a lot tonight about funding and program issues and contracts and bills, software audits, oversight policy boards. But there's Helen. Helen, who attended here 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that with you, Royal. And she's been featured in an article from Benjamin's Hope, where she's now living. And I asked Royal if he would like me to pass that around here. He said he would. It's remarkable what happens to people as services are delivered. I don't know if you want to say anything more, Royal, about that, but
Well, perhaps I should wait till the public comment and not take too much time. Thank you for the opportunity.
all right, thank you.
I
But
can say
just,
thank you now and I'll say thank you again when I'm speaking.
yeah. So anyway, just remember, this is more important than anything I have to say. Having said that, I'll say more things. I want to keep it short. Just want to draw attention to a couple of items on our agenda. On my report, on page 34 at the bottom, I talked about we received the application of Mr. John Clark. I forwarded that to the county with the request that that be processed by our Board of Commissioners. So I'm hopeful that we may see a new board member here if that passes muster there. The only other thing I think I'll just mention is on page 36. I referenced issues in the state budget. I just want to draw your attention to the attachments. In particular, that's pages 41 at the bottom and 42 at the top, where it talks about the impacts on Michigan of the federal HR 1 bill that we're all kind of trying to get ahead of. And so impacts on the state office because of the work being required of them now. They'll need to add a lot of staff to conduct the work that's being assigned to them through this new federal law. At the top of 42 are the impacts on the people that the programs serve in Michigan, the Medicaid programs particularly, because we're looking for updates on the Michigan Medicaid program. So I won't get into it too much further, but I just wanted to draw your specific attention there so that you're aware, even as we watch together the impacts on Medicaid enrollments. Finally, I'll mention that on page 36, the second item I included there about the mental health framework, I attached on page 43 and 44 and 5, the letter that we sent to the state in response to the opportunity for feedback on a mental health framework. Friday afternoon, we received a response from the state along with all those that provided feedback. And the message was this, and I'll quote, "In response to feedback, MDHHS will temporarily delay the mental health framework coverage responsibility policy to allow for system-wide preparation. And then they include a list of steps that they'll be working on between now and whenever, if that whenever ever materializes. But the impact of the feedback was enough to at least temporarily postpone the implementation. So for what it's worth. That's all I have unless there's questions.
Any questions for Mark? Here. So now, we have training on compliance and recipient rights. Elsie and Diane, or who's going first?
This is Diane. I can go first. Can you hear me?
Yep, yes.
Okay. Oops. I've got to share my screen here. If I can figure out how to do that, huh? Let's see. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we're seeing the, your view, not the presentation.
Oh, not the presentation.
You'll want to go to the slide view or slideshow view.
Yep.
There you go. There
Can
you
you see it now?
go.
All righty. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me today. One of our requirements is that we do board training on compliance every year. So you'll be good to go for the next year. We want to talk about the role of our board of directors in corporate compliance. And I'm kind of consolidating the role, which is a big role, into two areas: oversight and the compliance program effectiveness review. So this is a requirement of the Public Health Code, the Managed Care Standards Program Integrity requirement, which requires that the board establish a regulatory compliance committee at the board level and at the senior management level, and basically charged with overseeing the organization's compliance program and its compliance with all of the requirements under our contract. So in addition, we have corporate integrity agreements. These are agreements, legally binding agreements that outline compliance obligations for organizations that have violated healthcare laws and with the goal of preventing future misconduct. So one example of a corporate integrity agreement is this one that I get these notices online, and this one came through, and it was with New Way, which is a Minnesota-based mental health provider. And they were ordered to pay over $18 million in restitution for fraudulent billing to Medicaid in violation of the False Claims Act. And that was back in March of 2025. So most all of these corporate integrity agreements address board involvement. So in this specific agreement, board oversight is what they addressed. And it says that the board shall be responsible for the review and oversight of New Way's compliance with federal healthcare program requirements and the requirements of this corporate integrity agreement. And then it gets a little more prescriptive and talks about the board having at least one independent member. And at minimum, they are responsible for meeting quarterly to review and oversee the compliance program. And they were required to submit to the OIG a description of materials it reviewed at each meeting and any additional steps taken. So that's just an example. They get very prescriptive. They want to make sure that you have a full-time compliance officer, that there are committees that are meeting, that, just depends on what the issue was. So OnPoint does meet these requirements by having various management team members sit on the compliance committee. And we started that back in August of 24. I, as the compliance officer, is now a member of the management team. And the board executive committee also now acts in the capacity of the board's compliance committee. And the bylaws, I just took a snippet of the bylaws that talks about this. But as you know, they were approved by the board in March of 2026, this change to address that. So expectations for oversight, we all must act in good faith in the exercise of compliance program oversight responsibility. And that includes the ensuring that we have a information and reporting system that the reporting system assures that appropriate information relating to compliance with applicable laws will come to the board's attention. It's important for the board to understand the specific roles in identifying compliance risks, which is really everybody's responsibility. The role in investigating compliance risks and avoiding duplication of effort. And that really lies with the compliance officer and the compliance committee. Identifying and implementing appropriate corrective actions. We have a process in place where, based on outcomes of a compliance investigation, I may make recommendations to the powers that be, whether it's clinical area or administrative area. I work with the COO, CEO, the management team, and any specific supervisors in making those recommendations. And then we kind of negotiate our corrective action, because I may make a recommendation that just is not feasible on the front line. And, so we kind of work that out and come up with a corrective action plan. And then we would need to make sure that we've got communication between the various functions. And we want to have a process for management and the board to have the ability for identifying risk areas. And we should also be cognizant of recent industry trends, excuse me, so we can consider those when designing our risk assessment and risk management plans. So again, the board should also encourage a level of compliance and accountability across the organization. And one way that's done is by approval of the compliance plan and support of the compliance plan and program. And every board's responsible for ensuring that the organization, their own organization, complies with all of the relevant laws and regulations we have to follow. So compliance is an enterprise-wide responsibility, AKA a way of life in healthcare. Compliance efforts are necessary to protect our clients, our public funds, and OnPoint, and our reputation, and all of that. And the manner in which these efforts are operationalized is dependent on the organization's individual situation, our size, all of that type of thing. So maintaining the organization's compliance is really everybody's responsibility. So again, this is just a high level overview of what the expectations and responsibilities are. I do have some references on the last slide, but I want to just touch on the program effectiveness review. We are required to kind of evaluate our own internal program. Some entities have an external entity do this. Last year, we utilized LRE's site review protocols because they did review the compliance standards last year as our effectiveness review. I do think they were a little bit light, not detailed enough for what I would expect to be reviewed. So this year we are pulling together some protocols from the OIG guidance. They have hundreds of standards. I'm not going to pull them all in, but I'll work with the compliance committee and the management team to pull that together. We'll conduct it internally and then bring it to the board compliance executive committee for review and approval. And then those findings will be incorporated into the annual compliance work plan as appropriate. And I talked about maybe conducting that with an external reviewer, but that would be next year if we do something like that. So we do have I think we talked at one of the board meetings about the incident management software that was recently implemented at OnPoint, and this provides a few avenues for reporting any compliance concerns. One is through a helpline, and that can be, any of these methods can be totally anonymous, but anybody can call the helpline. They can go to the website there or copy and paste that URL in their browser, or they can scan the QR code and it'll bring them to a reporting mechanism. So they can always report to Lakeshore LRE if they want to, or write to MDHHS or the OIG. Of course, we've got to handle it at a local level too, so it'll funnel down to us, I'm sure. Staff can report to their supervisor, a member of the compliance committee. I think the main message is there's no wrong door for reporting. If there's a concern or somebody just feels something might not be right, I encourage them to call and we talk through it and determine, next steps. I also have listed down here the compliance officer's name, privacy, and security, because everybody should know who we all are. And then here's some resources for board members. One is quite old. It was published back in 2007, but it's still very relevant. But there's some resources that really talk about board's oversight responsibility for corporate compliance. And that's what I have tonight. If you have any questions or concerns that you want to raise.
Any questions for Diane? I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Kelsey?
Dylan's pulling that up. I'll start passing these around. I restructured the training a bit this year. So previously we focused really heavily on definitions. And this year I want to talk more about functions of the office and roles, including role members. So the booklets that are coming around are the state provided rights booklets. These are the summaries that we provide to recipients. So they're meant to be written in a way that's understandable to the average person, which is appreciated because in the rights office, we spend a lot of time deep in the law. So sometimes it's helpful to have that other perspective. So
I'm just gonna ask at home, can you folks see that? Everyone?
Yes.
Fortunately, the board cannot. That's why I go on. Just a second. Because right now they cannot.
okay. I'll start talking while you pull it up. So there are 4 core functions of the rights office: education, prevention, monitoring, and complaint resolution. We're most known for complaint resolution that impacts the people we serve and the staff who serve them most directly. But the parts that motivate those of us who work in the rights office are more of the education, the prevention, the monitoring, all the things to try to get in front of something ending up in complaint resolution. So a little bit about each of those 4 categories. Education is the first one. So all staff, both internal staff and external provider staff, are required to take new hire recipient rights training within their first 30 days of employment. I did really light slides, so you're just gonna see the main categories I'm talking about. That's all right. I'm on education, Dawn, if you don't mind.
Jump ahead one.
Okay. Perfect. So education is required within the first 30 days of hire. That is a more comprehensive touch point, and then we require annual training every year thereafter. That annual training is a requirement of our contract, not of the law itself. So we get to be more creative in what we put in that. It's also a lighter touch. There's also the education that the rights staff receive. So upon hire, each of us go through basic skills part 1 and part 2, which is provided directly by MDHHS ORR. And then we complete continuing education each year. That recently changed. So this is the first year that we are completing 8 hours per year instead of 36 over a 3-year period of time. Part of the intent with that was to make them more directly applicable to the work that we're doing. So we're trained on specific investigation strategies, specific things that we're doing rather than just general. We had a lot of just speakers come in and talk about their lives, but not necessarily talk about skills that we use in that day-to-day job. So next slide, Dawn. Prevention. This is the area that I'm personally most passionate about. So we spend a lot of time doing consultation, with internal staff, with home managers at AFCs, with CLS staff, with recipients directly, with their guardians. Policy development and review is a core component of prevention. So I do sit on the policy oversight committee. I hold our rights, like chapter of policies, but then am also able to provide input into other policies to ensure we're not setting someone up to commit a rights violation unintentionally. I also sit on our behavior treatment committee. So you heard a little bit about that earlier if you were at program committee. But my role there is to talk about restrictions that can be approved. So a lot of times the question we get is this restrictive? And often the answer is yes, but there are ways to make that allowable. It has to be time limited. We have to try less restrictive things first. We have to have a plan to reduce the restriction. So we catch a lot of that at the behavior treatment committee. And then as the office has stabilized over the last couple of years, I've been able to spend some more time doing assessment of trends. So working with internal staff, with our provider network to kind of catch trends and patterns and things that we're seeing, to craft examples for our training that speak directly to them, to do different types of initiatives. There was 1 year where we retrained everybody on incident reports because that was a big area of need. We can go ahead to monitoring. So incident report review and follow-up is one of the most important parts of this. So Missy, our rights specialist, is responsible for all incident review and follow-up. She has the same training as the rest of us. She went through the full basic skills 1 and 2. So she's not actively investigating, but she's able to use that knowledge when doing incident report review, because the law mandates that we open an investigation into a suspected or apparent rights violation. Historically, we opened a lot of complaints off of incident reports because they were simply unclear. We spent a lot of time when I first came in as director in the years past, or the years since then, on how to do an incident report review when we don't suspect a rights violation necessarily, we expect just poor documentation. So can we follow up on how we're documenting a missed medication or how we're documenting physical management and correcting that before it escalates to the point of a complaint resolution process? And that is one of the key reasons that we've seen our complaint volume decrease over the last several years. We also get notified of all deaths of recipients and do an initial review, just quick enough to make sure that we don't need to open an abuse or neglect investigation, and help with disseminating some of that information to the appropriate departments in the agency. Missy also does our annual site visits. So we're visiting the AFCs and the service sites at least once per year. And then part of our monitoring is that we are reporting out to the Rights Advisory Committee. You'll see some changes in that template that we're using. We've been talking about that at RAC for the past couple meetings, where we want to capture the emphasis we're putting on prevention in that formatting too. So we historically have led with, we received this many complaints, and so we'll still report out on that, but that's not necessarily the first thing we want to tell you. We can advance to complaint resolution. So we talked a lot about this over the years. I think many of you are familiar with the process. Happy to go into more detail at any point. But some key points I do want to make. So when we receive an allegation, if we receive it formally, so if someone says, I just want to run something past you, that's a different story. But if someone is saying, I'm filing a complaint, I am only allowed to reject that complaint if it's outside of my jurisdiction or if it's not a code protected right. So most often we're opening, and then sometimes we're connecting to a different CMH. We might refer it to licensing. That's usually in addition to ours. Sometimes Adult Protective Services might have jurisdiction, but not the rights office. So if it's a natural support, but not a paid staff member. And then occasionally we'll refer things to probate court too, if it's a complaint about a guardian. We also review the role of a complainant when we're receiving a complaint. A lot of people choose to be anonymous, which is fully within their rights, but then they aren't guaranteed to receive written documentation as the investigation progresses. And you have to be named as a complainant to have appeal rights in the end. So we make sure that that's clear when they're choosing to be anonymous. The report of investigative findings is the big conclusion document. And so that's the one that you see in those RAC status reports where we're reporting timeliness on the end of the investigation. Let's see, what happens after a substantiation? So we've also been really working hard on this in the past several years, where we want the substantiation process to be meaningful. It's not just someone getting in trouble for something, there's meaningful corrective action. So every substantiation requires remedial action, which is saying, go back and make it right, do that in a timely manner, and tell us what you're gonna do to prevent recurrence. And then anything that's coded as abuse or neglect requires disciplinary action, and the code carves out specific areas that, qualify as disciplinary action. And then we can also use that when, we're talking about ongoing monitoring and some pulling those trends and patterns out. So at OnPoint, we're really fortunate to have a really strong relationship with our internal staff, but also with our provider network. We hear from other CMHs frequently that they are kind of just working in silos. They're doing similar things, but not talking to each other. So routine meetings with Gina, with our provider network has been really helpful in that prevention work overall. So next, we're going to talk about the role of the board of directors. So here's where we get into more of the law, but essentially what you need to know here is that we're required every year to present an annual report to the board of directors. This goes through the categories. So technically that report is prepared by my office in partnership with Mark, and it comes from the executive director. And then the role is also to appoint RAC and to appoint an appeals committee. So the appeals committee can be RAC, but there are different numbers of people required for each. So RAC is required to have 6 members. Appeals committee is required to have 7. As you heard earlier, we have a new chairperson, and we're working on backfilling some of those roles to make sure that we frequently have good attendance of that committee. The role of RAC is next, actually. So the role of RAC is specified in the law code. So to meet at least twice per year, or as necessary to carry out its responsibilities, we're meeting quarterly. We have specific categories that we have to fill of the number of direct service recipients, board members, members of the public. So we maintain a list of all of that. The role of RAC is also to protect the office of recipient rights from pressures that could interfere with impartial, even-handed, and thorough performance of its functions. And to weigh in whenever there's the hiring or dismissal of a rights director, to serve in an advisory capacity to both myself and to our executive director, and then review and provide comments on semi-annual and annual reports. And then RAC can also be appointed as an appeals committee, which our RAC is. So, in the event that we receive an appeal, that committee is sprung. The individual has 45 days to file the appeal. There are only 3 areas that you can file an appeal on, which are that you think that the investigative findings are not consistent with fact or law, the action taken or the plan of action proposed is not adequate, or that the investigation was not initiated in or completed on a timely basis. And then there are 4 on the next slide, responses that the appeals committee can make. So the appeals committee can uphold both the findings and the corrective action, can return the investigation for reinvestigation, can uphold the findings but recommend additional corrective action. And then there's also an option to make a recommendation to the board to refer the investigation to the state to be reinvestigated. So that is what I have for you. Any questions on the rights office?
To the executive committee report. And I just wanted to say that there was no significant matters that I should need to highlight tonight from the executive committee meeting that we had Friday, except to say that we do need to appoint the voting delegates for the CMHA conference member assembly. And we need to vote on 3. And I just did a quick survey, and myself and Mark are planning to attend the conference, and it's usually the CEO who also is one of the 3. But I just wanted to double check, is anybody else going to the conference? You're going to the conference too. So were you planning, is that the one that's gonna be Friday night?
No, this is a Monday night,
It'll be Monday night.
June 8th.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to come early for it at all.
No, I'm sorry, it's the evening before the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the night before it starts.
yeah, it's like a 4-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. You know, you could always watch it and see if it's anything you'd ever wanna, be a part of. And if you're willing to serve, and I am too, and Mark, I wanted to, go ahead.
You may also designate an alternate in case someone's unable to fulfill their duties. Then the next person steps up.
There. Okay. Expect a call. Okay. Well, then I would just like to appoint myself and Mark to that, and, I would just want to, confirmation for that appointment.
Make a motion to confirm?
Support. Favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion. Approved. Okay, now on to the search committee. Good idea. Are we allowed to change the agenda? All right, I'm just. It's gonna be a while. So Royal, if you had any interest in going ahead and we could move the public comment section to now. And if you would like to, or if you want to stay to the end,
Well, I appreciate that. I think I will take advantage of that opportunity. Thank you.
okay.
Mainly my hearing, but sometimes I don't think with the size of the room that we get the vocals projected very well. So if there's more power available. Yeah, I had sent just a photocopy of this. It seems as if Benjamin's Hope should send you one on a monthly basis anyway. However, I think if you see Benjamin's Hope, you can see something. And so the title, it's on the internet, the title of this particular publication, Look What Love Built. And actually, you can go on the internet and it's kind of curious to see that you are turning pages on the internet screen, but that's something you can do. Anyway, we have, the one picture is of Helen Rachel Gruey, and it's related to the rapid prompting method. And we're mentioned in there, but not my name, which I think we're glad of. But we're extremely thankful. And nothing has changed to make us believe that we would like her to be anywhere else for the rest of her life. We would hope that, and the fact that this is being offered, it's rather expensive, as you can see if you read the article. But the fact that something is being offered shows that it's a lot more than warehousing. We visited a number of places. One place was so grim, I was wondering how anyone ever put forth a recommendation to even stop there. And so anyway, but I think Shakespeare says that ingratitude is sharper than a serpent's tooth. I'm trying to think of it short and see if I can look it up. But anyway, I do think it's one of the least attractive qualities in human beings. And so I wanted to share the thankfulness, and you can read more. Just one of the things, we visited her a week from today, and I had received a communication from the director of development, and she used to work at Calvin College, and now they have a child who is, as of last December, who is now in Benjamin's Hope, and seemingly is much more highly functioning than Helen Rachel Gruey, but something we will try. We was closed circuit, as Mary's mentioned here. We saw the session that is referred to, and so we shall see. We shall see, but something we can hardly resist anything that might offer some help, because again, there's the possibility, those of you who work with speech pathologists, as I did for a long time, and you are probably aware of it too, the difference between receptive and expressive language. Well, we haven't heard a recognizable word in decades, but it seems that a word or a phrase has been filed away and has, so at the very least, it is worth a try. So I would hope you would get a copy of this. We're not the only people. Nan, who was a longtime employee, has someone there. And then there's another family who were part of our parents group. They have a family there. In fact, she is in the very house with our Helen. So there's a great deal to be thankful for, thank you for. And I just want to make sure that that is and I hope to be around a lot. One of the things, the parent group is pretty much non-existent and so on. But I remember when changes were made, and some of the, many of the things like the things were available to people after 26. And there was a pink slipping of, I think, 81 people or so, over 80, and some were hired back and some, but nevertheless, it was dramatic. And there are just so many things to be thankful. Just talking to the person who recently had a child become eligible. Learning, I don't know how widespread it is, throughout our country. That is how long special education will keep people. But the lady was telling me of a family whose son aged out in whatever state it was when he was 18. Can you imagine what the family felt like when they had Michigan, where he could get service till he's 26? I mean, the world, So once again, thank you. And prayers for your deliberations, particularly I'm thinking of saying onerous duty, but anyway, the duty, just what you're going to have to do to find a new leader. And when I see Glenn going and so on, so I wish you well, and I'll be scriptural and say, don't be weary in well doing. Thank you again.
Okay. So again, I'll start with the search committee. We have voted to recommend 6 applicants. But before we go into that, we do need to, I want to move that the board go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.2681F to consider applicants for CEO where the applicant has requested confidentiality. Hoping to have a support for that motion.
Support.
Any other discussion? Oh, you have to have a roll call for a.
Yeah.
Do I? Okay.
It just says a point of order, you need a 2/3 majority.
So I do need definitely. Okay. Kimberly,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
I vote yes. Beth,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Okay. We will move into closed session.
You want to specify who beyond the board you wish to have included?
Yes. I would like to have Dawn and Mark stay on.
I also recommend that legal advice or legal counsel be
Yes.
included. Mr. Beendit, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right.
Mr. Bendit like Beckham. Good evening.
All right, thank you.
Stop this a second.
So Michelle, if you could go ahead and disconnect, that'd be great.
You're back up.
Give me a second to figure. Mark, can you assist to this recording?